Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of our Sibling Stereotypes podcast. My name's Ame Sarameta and I am representing the youngest child. And I just wanted to talk about my experience with these stereotypes for being the youngest child. And just starting right in, it's not like I chose to be the youngest child. Being the last born is just something that was put on to me because I was the last person born in my family. And it's crazy because being the youngest, I've always noticed that I was treated differently than my older sister, and also by my parents. Even before I was like a concept of being, there's always been stereotypes about youngest children and the way that they act. Not all of these stereotypes are bad. Like, youngest children are often also known for being affectionate or agreeable, but there's also harmful ones that are everywhere, and they're constantly put onto people like me, that they're spoiled, lazy, rebellious. And these narratives are just so far driven into people's heads that they forget that they're just stereotypes, and not all youngest children act that ways, and especially not me. People tend to assume that youngest children are lazy, spoiled, and attention-seeking and rebellious. But as a youngest sibling myself, I've had to work for all of my achievements without constantly being in the center of attention. One of the ones that like gets on to me the most is that everyone assumes that I'm lazy. There's been way too many instances where I've been deemed as lazy simply because of the order I was born, because I was the youngest child. And I think it's unfair. Going back to my 18th birthday party, before the party, I got to the venue around 7 a.m. because I was told that my mom and sister would be there with the decorations not too long afterwards so we could set it up. And I was there with my boyfriend and 2 of my friends, expecting that we would be able to set up for the party early. But because of the limited things that we had at the venue, we couldn't do much while we were waiting for my sister and my mom to get there with the other decorations. We did what we could, but my mom had the table placements, and so we didn't know too much. So the most we could do was put some chairs on the tables that I knew were fully set and not going to move. By the time my mom and sister got there, it was already 12:30. The party was in a couple hours. And I ended up being scolded by them because I didn't do anything to help set up. I ended up getting called lazy because I just tried to do what I could with the resources that I had. According to the article, Does Birth Order Determine Your Child's Personality by Jocelyn Vu, she quotes Dr. Lehman's book, saying that lastborns are known for feeling nothing I do is important, which I do agree by the ways that I was treated because of what I tried to do. I tried my best to help set up for the party, and I ended up being called lazy. And so that made me feel like nothing I do is important because nobody acknowledged the fact that I put in a lot of effort to make the time that I was at the venue useful and productive. There's a looming cloud over me that I have to consistently prove to my family that I'm not lazy and that whatever I do isn't enough. This stereotype just continues to follow me everywhere. Even continuing later that night, I ended up spraining my ankle because I fell off the stage and I could not walk. My mom and my sister just kept on calling me lazy every time I tried. I even tried to sit down because I couldn't walk. It was a struggle for me to go and do anything for the rest of that party. But I tried my best because I didn't want to be scolded. I wanted them to see me and know that I was still trying my best and that I was putting in an effort to help out the party. And when later in that evening when we were cleaning up the party, I didn't complain to anybody. The only person I really complained to was my boyfriend. But to my family, to my friends, I just kept going. I was hobbling around everywhere, but I was still helping move tables and chairs and picking up boxes of food, boxes of decorations, putting them in everyone's cars. I even drove myself home from the venue to drop stuff off so I could come back and there'd be more room in my car. I did so much stuff for this party, and so much to help clean it up afterwards, and I still didn't get any kind of acknowledgement. I sat down when most people were leaving at this point, and almost all of the decorations were done. So I decided to sit down and take a little bit of a break because I had been moving around for the past 5 hours since I sprained my ankle. And my sister came up to me and completely lashed out on me, saying that I was so lazy, that I hadn't done a single thing to help this party, that I hadn't done anything all night but sit around. These harsh remarks only made me want to do less at the party. I did not want to help out anymore. I was tired of it. I had been berated the entire day, and I was done with it. And I thought that I should just fulfill this prophecy they were trying to impose on me. And this is like the self-fulfilling prophecy, because of the way that I'm treated. I should ultimately, and it would ultimately make me fit this stereotype, because I'm only ever seen as such. People will only ever assume that I am lazy simply because I am the youngest sibling. In another article called The Impact of Psychological Birth Order on Academic Achievement and Motivation by Alyssa Combs-Strawn, she says, the aspects of drive, reward responsiveness, and anticipation of punishment were not statistically significantly different as a function of the psychological birth order of the participants. Proved that motivation, which is directly related to laziness, is not related to birth order, which these are the things that I think that people should be seeing, because the stereotypes do not fit me, and I do not think that they fit most other youngest children. But specifically for this being about my experience with these stereotypes, I think they are harmful, and I genuinely don't believe that I fit into the stereotype that youngest children are lazy. I do my best, and I try really hard to get my stuff done. Moving on, another really big stereotype is that youngest children are attention-seeking. I would never consider myself being attention-seeking, mainly because I hate being the center of attention. Even like when I was younger, the most I would ever want to do is fit in with my older sibling, older cousins, and stuff like that, but I would only do enough to be part of the group, but not ever be the center of attention. In an article called Examining the Effects of Birth Order on Personality by Julia Roher and some other people that she worked with, she said, conversely, he expected laterborns, overindulged by their parents, to lack social empathy, which these are like kind of the assumptions that I try to gear people away from, because they're untrue. And this expectation was later proven false. And with assuming the lack of social empathy, which also assumes that I would be selfish and more selfish, and thus want to be in the center of attention, which is just wrong, because I hate being in the center of attention. Like, even in times where I was supposed to be, like at my 16th and my 18th birthday parties, which were really big parties, I had to constantly be in the front and the center, and all eyes were always on me. And if I was supposed to fall into this stereotype, I would have loved this attention. I would have loved all eyes on me, being super dressed up and putting on a show for everybody. But I was so anxious, specifically my 16th birthday party, I was so anxious the entire time that I just hid in the bathroom for an hour. I just paced back and forth, or I would text some of my friends and be like, guys, I can't do this. Like, I cannot face so many people, because I was just so anxious, because I hated it. And there'd be people who I didn't even know constantly coming up and talking to me, telling them how proud I am of me. And it makes me sound almost ungrateful for the attention that I was given, but it was just too much, and it was very anxiety inducing. Another example is like when my sister and I were younger, I rarely tried to be the center of attention. I'm not trying to say that I was the perfect little sister, but I rarely tattled on her when she did something bad, but she would do it to me all the time. As we got older, this ended up changing, but specifically when we were really young. And sometimes, like, even to this day, I would consider my sister fitting into some of these younger sibling stereotypes. Not me, but just because she's older, it proves the inaccuracy of these stereotypes only fitting the youngest child. Being the youngest is seen almost derogatory. and undermined by like my older family members. But in reality, I would never deliberately seek to be the center of attention. I just always wanted to be a little bit included, just a little bit more, to not be seen as the baby of the family. And then going forward, the one stereotype that I feel like I will not and never will really resonate with me is that youngest children are really rebellious. I didn't even really know that this was that big of a stereotype until like some people like made some jokes about it. People would joke how I could just do whatever I wanted, and I would, or not even just break rules in my household, break rules anywhere. But that's really untrue, because especially in elementary school, all the way through middle school, I was such a rule follower. I was the teacher's pet. I tried so hard, and I was basically like role model student. I was always to class early or on time, and I did all of my homework. Like I tried so hard to be like the perfect student. I would never step out of line. Sometimes I would stay after school and help out around the classroom, and sometimes I even helped them out with grading or sorting their papers. And I liked having this like role to fulfill. And because of this, I never broke the rules or stepped too far out of line. And it got to the point where I was even scared of getting in trouble or having any sort of negative remark on my reputation. And it caused me so much stress, even as a little kid. I think the rebellious stereotype grew from this narrative that younger siblings wanted attention. So it like ties in with attention seeking. Specifically wanting attention from their parents, I think is a much more exaggerated explanation, and I do not think it's very accurate. According to an article called Ordered Delinquency, The Effects of Birth Order on Delinquency by Patrick Cundiff, he says that lastborns did not significantly differ in the likelihood of engagement in problem behavior from middleborns. Although this is just comparing the middle child and the youngest child, it does prove that there was nothing that different. And so saying that this stereotype is not very accurate, it just shows that kids will be kids, and the birth order does not change any of that. And the term rebellious in general has a far more negative connotation than just attention seeking, and it makes it seem like youngest children are just trouble, and that they cause so much disturbance for attention. I don't think that these stereotypes can be generalized, especially in everybody's like youngest children, but I can understand where it came from, considering that they're very close together, that rebellion and attention seeking are pretty close together. But it does not fit me, and I do think it's pretty inaccurate. Overall, people will always forget that stereotypes are just stereotypes, and the fact that they do negatively impact real people, including me. I do not believe that I myself fit into the narratives that people say that I am. This article by Julia Roher saying that, to conclude, birth order position seems to have only a small impact on who we become. And I think that this is what, if anybody who's watching, this is what you should take away from these podcasts. That the stereotypes that people put on you it will never define you. Even if it does impact you in daily life, it's not your true self. It is not who you have to become, where you have to fall into line. And that just because people say and people assume that youngest children are lazy, spoiled, attention-seeking, and rebellious, that doesn't mean that you have to fit into it. And I myself, I did what I had to do. I worked hard. I hated being in the center of the attention, and I was never really rebellious. I was a constant rule follower. So these stereotypes, regardless of just being the youngest children, it doesn't define you, and it's not who you really are, and not me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening about my perspective and my experiences with these harmful stereotypes for being the youngest children. Have a good one.